So I would call, let's approach this from the point of view, if God exists, what must be true? Just for a moment. Shall we do that? So if God exists, then God had to have existed before anything else existed. Because all matter came, under the theory that God exists, all matter came into existence from God. So under that theory, then it would mean God would need to exist before any matter existed. Any matter that we know of in this universe existed. Even the universe itself, before that existed, God had to exist. He had to exist in order to create the universe. If God exists, he must have first existed before the universe did in order for him to create it. So logically, you can see that, right? So it makes sense then, doesn't it, that if God exists, there is a number of things that we would have to define God as being, right? One of the things is that God had to exist beyond what we know as matter in any of its states. God had to exist in a different form, right? So that's the first thing. God's form cannot be human. Right? It's impossible for God's form to be human, if you think about it from that perspective. So what do they call that? No anthropomorphic, I think is the word, isn't it? God. No God in human form. So not in human form. However, there are some things we can suppose about God as a being. If God exists, God must be intelligent. Isn't that true? Because if he had the ability to create everything we see, then that requires a very complex intelligence. Right? So he has to be intelligent. And when I say intelligent, I'm talking way beyond any in the intelligence that any of us have ever contemplated. Intelligent. He has to know everything so well that he can actually create them. Right? It's like an engineer having to build a bridge. Like, how many of you could actually build a bridge that actually you could drive over? Right? You'd have to get educated well, wouldn't you, first, in terms of structural engineering, and then you could potentially do it. And so the fact that if all of these things from the world around us come from a source, then that source has to have the intelligence to design them. Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. What else does God need to be if God exists? Any ideas? Yep. So you just keep your hands up, because otherwise I don't know. Yep.
When you can, is it okay? The
Yep.
microphone?
Yeah, I can hear you.
When observing the physical things God created, he's intelligent but also creative.
So I'm not sure what your point is.
Creative.
Creative? Yep. So you could say, if we look at it as a whole, must be the fundamental creator of all things. So let's call God the creator, shall we? Yep. What else? Would God need to be if God existed? Yep.
Powerful.
Okay, because there's an immense amount of power in the universe, isn't there? And if that came from a source, it makes sense that the source has to be more powerful. So, powerful. In fact, it would tend to indicate that the power must be immense, wouldn't it? If you look at the power in the universe, and that is a creation, if it's a creation, then the source of that power must be immense. Yep. Yep. Up back there, is a mic there? Yep.
Yeah. Loving.
Loving. Now, let's look at loving. Why would it have to be loving?
Well, I was just thinking, like, we as humans, but also animals and plants, you don't necessarily have to be very intelligent to create.
Correct.
You can also be powerful, but you can also be loving and create for example, a baby, which is quite a achievement, I guess.
Yeah, if you look at, and this is something that's really an interesting problem to solve if you're looking at it from an intellectual perspective, and that is, how did love as a feeling ever come to be? Because love is self-sacrificing generally. And natural selection is not really about self-sacrifice, is it? It's about the strongest thing survives. So love is a strange quality, because love has the feeling in it that I want to sacrifice myself for the sake of another, even if I'm stronger than the other.
And that I want to nurture.
And I want to nurture, yeah.
That may not be as strong as me, or yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Nurture something that's not as strong as me into growth. Now, so love is a very interesting idea and concept, and when you start considering it, you've got to start asking where it came from. Don't you really? Because it's a very interesting idea that we can actually love, which is beyond our desire to be selfish. Yeah. So it's a very, very good point. Yep. If we come down to the front, and then if you leave your hand up.
Well, I wonder maybe love is the basis of everything, because God must have had a concept, a purpose, what he wants, and you feel that in everything you see, that it has to be, because if there wasn't a loving concept at the basis,
Yep.
it couldn't have.
A lot of things couldn't exist, could they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're saying here, though, is we're approaching this for the help of for trying to help those of us who are saying, well, how can I develop a relationship with God when I don't really believe in a God? What we're trying to do here is we're trying to say, well, what is going to cause us to believe that God is real, rather than just being an intellectual construct of needy humanity? What is going to convince us that God is actually real? Now, a proper contemplation of many of these things can do that, is what I'm suggesting. And most of us are not ever encouraged to do that. And there's a lot of reasons why we're not encouraged to consider these things when we examine the world around us. And one of the reasons is, if you want to be lawless, belief in a God is not advisable. If you want to break the law, it's better you don't believe in a God. And unfortunately, on earth, most of us want to break laws. We have an emotional desire to break laws, right? And I'm talking not the laws of the land, but natural laws.